We finally know the truth about what happened to Glamrock Bonnie. Regrettably, we don't have the entire story locked in concrete, but there seems to be enough context clues now, along with one huge revelation that tells us so much. I made a video on the mystery of Bonnie. I discussed him in the Monty video. We've all wondered what happened, and now, because of Ruin, we now know what happened to Glamrock Bonnie. We know where he is. Let's begin with the reveal of Glamrock Bonnie's design. In Security Breach, Bonnie had two different appearances, one on the sign for Bonnie Bowl, and another in a sketch drawing in an office. Neither of these resemble Glamrock Bonnie fully, though I suppose that does make sense as one is stylized and the other is a child's drawing. There's bound to be differences. Here is the real Bonnie, as depicted in the Gator Golf Dark Ride. Bonnie's real design fits much more in line with the Glamrock style the others have instead of the simplistic bowling design. He's a soft blue, akin to Toy Bonnie, with a dark blue tuft of hair between his ears. He wears a red spandex-looking bodysuit with purple stripes and a star in the center, and a dark blue or indigo headband, earring, and flared capelet-looking thing. Indeed, Bonnie looks ready for, admittedly mazer size, but it does fit in with the colorful glam 80s aesthetic. He looks just like a member of the band would. Weirdly enough, a hidden sign that will come into some significance later shows Bonnie with star-shaped shades that resemble Monty's. This mixed with the star sketch seems to suggest that at some time, Bonnie was the one with the star sunglasses, and they were passed on to Monty when he became the bassist. The reason Bonnie didn't have them in the Dark Ride simply could be to not confuse branding, as by the time the ride came out, the sunglasses might have been used to identify it as a Monty thing. This isn't entirely clear, but the signs are there, literally. Bonnie's design is shown off on his merchandise as well, which can be found only in Ruin. There is a Bonnie plush and a piñata. The piñata carries a neat detail where it reveals that Bonnie had his own kind of candy too. Carrot drops, sort of like Sun and Moon's Sunny Drops and Moon Drops, assumedly tasting like carrot cake. It's not known if any other characters had specifically made candy like them. Also, remember the damage on the piñata. It's notable. As I said and showed a moment ago, Glamrock Bonnie's cartoon design is shown on the cutouts in the Monty Gator Ride. While Bonnie was all but erased from the Pizzaplex, his intrinsic role in Monty's story meant that he couldn't be taken out of it. Or perhaps it helped explain away why he was no longer here. Once upon a time there was a young gator named Montgomery who lived in a swamp. He had musical aspirations though, and created his own one-man jug band. Though he didn't play a jug, he played what I believe is supposed to be a homemade bass engraved with his initials. He looked up and admired the Glamrock animatronics and might have even went to their shows. One day Monty met Bonnie, who gave him his bass. Roxy then styled his hair into its cool mohawk, he got his sunglasses, and he headed to the Pizzaplex where he became the Monty Gator we know today. This story portrays Monty as more than just Bonnie's replacement, but the one chosen by Bonnie himself to pick up the mantle of bassist. That he was gifted the position and that he might have idolized Bonnie. Maybe, but I believe, like how Monty has advertised his chill in the merchandise, this wasn't the case when it came to the relationship between the two. So, Bonnie was part of the Pizzaplex until he was replaced by Monty. In Security Breach, we're cued into Freddy and Bonnie's close bond by how many times the bear brings him up, by the context clues of the bowling equipment out front and center in his green room, and a sad scene where upon taking Freddy to Bonnie's closed curtain, he somberly says that he misses him.
I do not come up here anymore. I miss him.
Displaying that he is actively grieving him. Ruin gives us a deeper look into that bond, and the result is possibly sadder than we imagined. And we find it inside of Bonnie's own green room. Bonnie's hidden green room is stashed behind his curtain and the wall that used to be there, and down a hidden passage. It's not nearly as impressive as the other Glamrock's rooms, but that could be because it's been out of use for years. But it does have a star-shaped vanity like Chica, Monty, and Roxy's. On the vanity, Bonnie keeps a golden statue of Freddy and a Freddy plush, but the most significant thing in his room is a poster up on the wall which has been signed by Freddy. It reads, "You and me forever and ever. Love, Freddy." So maybe I'm reading too much into this, but that wording mixed with Freddy's sorrow makes me think that maybe Freddy and Bonnie were a little closer than friends. Just the context of that message is very you and me, forever and ever, together forever, love Freddy. Forever and ever is likely a reference to the song Forever and Ever from the Security Breach teasers, but that doesn't change how telling the wording is. The word love is one that can be exchanged between friends, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think that friendship is what this is implying, and that would back up Freddy's prolonged grief. And the poster is being used to hide a secret vent into Phaser Blast. I'm not saying for certain that Freddy and Bonnie were in a relationship, but this definitely reads like one, and if that's the case, then that is so much worse. So much more tragic that Freddy lost him. And he did lose him. Bonnie wasn't replaced and scrapped, Bonnie went missing. One night at the Pizzaplex, Bonnie was reported to have walked into the East Arcade and then a few hours later headed into Monty Golf, where he was last seen. This message alone is very questionable, as it indicates that Bonnie went into these locations and stayed there for hours without reporting what he was doing when he was there. They were also made by Vanessa, who we knew was doing some shady stuff behind the scenes. The next known instance of the messages addressing Bonnie was someone saying that Monty was getting fitted with Bonnie's upgrades to play the bass to replace him, that he might become more popular. This leads me to believe that Monty's origin story in the Dark Ride might have just been set up to explain why Bonnie was replaced. Yet, even recently, kids have been asking about Bonnie, as one message states, and they neither made an attempt to rebrand the bowling alley nor replace his empty stage. Fazbear Entertainment and their half-efforts as usual. Now, this is initially where the story ended. Speculation about what happened to Glamrock Bonnie spread from the moment Freddy first brought him up after stepping out of the daycare. That mixed with the strange nature of his disappearance, and that led to questioning. Bonnie was last seen entering Monty Golf. Did Monty destroy Bonnie? Did Vanny? Was it Monty being controlled by Vanny? Was it so Vanny could use his body to create Burn Trap? What happened to Glamrock Bonnie? Well, now we know, and it is one of the most tragic outcomes. Bonnie's green room isn't the only thing we find hidden in Bonnie Bowl. Throughout the Pizzaplex there are wet floor bots that Cassie can deactivate and ruin. There's one specifically in Bonnie Bowl that when you deactivate it, it opens a secret passage that leads into a hidden back room. And that is where we find him. Bonnie has been here the whole time, horribly broken, surrounded by wet floor bots, alone. Bonnie has sustained severe damage. His limbs are broken apart and his casing is cracked. He has a large gutted scratch across his chest and blunt force damage to his face, resembling the marks on the piñata. A broken bowling ball is lying in pieces on him, but it is on his chest where we see an undeniable telltale. Bonnie has those large gashes across his chest. Gashes you will be familiar with if you look at the damage done around Gator Golf, including to the golf ball shooters. There's also green paint residue left behind on the wound, paint transfer from whatever hit him in the chest. I've seen theories that the Mimic could have done this, but the Mimic was, as far as we know, always trapped underneath the Pizzaplex. It's said to have been trapped down there for a long time specifically, and it's so desperate to get out that it's unlikely it would have gotten free and came up to the Pizzaplex, only to attack Bonnie and then retreated to, or was lured back to the basement. So I think the Mimic's out. There's also some speculation that the staff bots could have done this because they did similar damage to Glamrock Freddy, but Glamrock Freddy's damage was technically not done by the staff bots. See, the shattered design was reused for the disassembled endings, explaining why the staff bots pull Freddy apart, but he is shown with gutted damage, because originally, Freddy was going to be attacked by his bandmates, Chica, Roxy, and Monty. And this is where we come to an undeniable conclusion. The green paint transfer, the familiar damage, the utter strength it would take to do this to another animatronic, the death rolls that could have separated his limbs. Monty did it. Monty is the one who shattered Bonnie. But did he do it out of his own volition, or did Vanny make him do it? Vanny's security room, the one she uses at the top of Phaser Blast, is the bowling alley security room, and it is the room that the vent in Bonnie's room is connected to. Is it possible that she used Monty to get Bonnie out of the way? Well, yes, but I don't really think so. I think with how violent Monty is shown to be, borderline animalistic in ruin, and territorial by nature, that he might have just done it out of his own volition. And this is where I cut into my initial script and reveal that I think I figured out what really happened to Bonnie while I was making this video. And all it took to unravel the truth was noticing the bundle of wires sticking out under Bonnie's waist. Does Glamrock Bonnie's injuries look familiar? They should. I noticed when you look at Bonnie's belly that he is separated at the waist and his spinal cords are hanging loose. Exactly how Monty was broken in half when he fell off the catwalks. The damage on Bonnie's face is also nearly identical to the damage on Shattered Monty's. Other than the claw marks, he also has the same hole in his chest as Monty's as well. There is also this hidden cutout on the Monty Gator ride that shows a scared Glamrock Bonnie falling. Bonnie fell off the catwalks in Monty Golf. How was he even on the catwalks? While we're not 100% sure, we do have evidence that Bonnie might have been going through the vents somehow in his green room. From the vent hidden behind his poster. The sizing doesn't make sense, but perhaps he entered Monty Golf through the mazer-sized vent. We know that initially in development of Security Breach, Monty's upgrade was going to be his powerful legs, allowing for him to jump super high, and that he likely inherited them from Bonnie. While this was scrapped, maybe that's still how Bonnie got up onto the catwalks? We aren't sure, but I am absolutely sure that Bonnie was struck in the chest by Monty Gator for some reason. Glamrock Bonnie then fell off the catwalks, got the same damage as Monty did, but he didn't get up. So how did he get back into Bonnie Bowl? I noticed that Bonnie's body is laying on a blanket. While it's unlikely that they were fighting on this random blanket, Monty possibly used a blanket to transport Bonnie here. People transporting bodies have been known to use blankets, tarps, drop cloths, whatever they have on them. Bonnie's limbs are also detached, possibly to make it easier to move him. Monty bundles him up, sneaks him out, and nobody sees Bonnie leave Monty Golf. Ergo, missing. That's why they weren't searching Bonnie Bowl for him. As far as they know, he was last seen in Monty Golf. Initially, I thought the fight broke out in here because of the damage on the wall, but if you look, the damage is circular, almost like a bowling ball slammed into it. The broken bowling ball laying on Bonnie didn't do the damage to him because it doesn't match. This damage was too exact to be done by that bowling ball, but lines perfectly to the fall. All of this, is a setup. Monty staged the scene so it looked like Bonnie had a slip and fall and ended up damaging himself with a bowling ball. He broke the bowling ball and laid it on him. He was the one to bring in the motionless wet floor signs, and he was the one who laid Bonnie out here. He staged it to look like an accident. That's why, even though Bonnie has such severe, horrific damage, he's still completely lined up in place, as though he fell like that, when in reality, if something was tearing him up, he wouldn't be laid out like that. He'd be all over the place. But nobody would believe this, right? Of course they wouldn't, because Monty isn't smart. You can hide, but you can't hide. He fell off the catwalks once, and he still hangs around up there. His multiple dumb mistakes. Ruin especially shows off how reckless Monty is and how he thinks before he acts, pretty much throwing and damaging himself to get to Cassie numerous times. Trying to cover for himself, he thought this pitiful display would cover for him, unknowing that Fazbear Entertainment didn't even care. Now, did Monty mean to push Bonnie? That I don't know. Monty definitely sliced Bonnie, but it's unclear if he did it trying to Scar and Mufasa him, or if he just got too angry and swung without thinking. And I don't think we'll ever know if this was an actual murder or just a dumb mistake. In the end, it's not going to change what happened. Because either way, Monty still did it. And then he covered it up. Out of anger or out of fear, Monty hit Bonnie, he fell off the catwalks, he got the same damage as Shattered Monty, and then Monty moved him to Bonnie Bowl and staged a slip and fall. It is a hilariously bad job, but that's Monty for you. My initial conclusion with Monty was that he was acting like a gator, territorial and aggressive, and that still could be the case. In an interview, Monty's voice actor, Cameron Miller, claimed that Monty has this notice me senpai relationship with Freddy. Well, not in those words exactly. He said he admires him. This is never directly shown in game, but if it is the truth, then perhaps that was Monty's motive for getting Bonnie out of the way. Because it is clear that whether romantic or friendly, Freddy and Bonnie's bond was one stronger than even with his other bandmates. Karma eventually catches up with Monty in an unexpected way. While chasing Cassie, she has to reroute the power to get through a door in a flooded passage. This causes power to return to a neon sign, the neon Glamrock Bonnie sign I mentioned earlier. It short-circuits and severely electrocutes Monty, who is still in the water. He sinks underneath, and that is the end. But even if Monty's temper finally caught up with him, if Bonnie caught up with him, that doesn't bring him back. It's really tragic. But that's not the most tragic thing here. Gone but not forgotten, Bonnie is forgotten, but not gone. When we find Bonnie, his eyes glow in the same yellow as the wet floor bots, the ones who are always watching. We only find him because deactivating a bot lets us come in and find him. And deactivating every single wet floor bot in Ruin causes Bonnie's eyes to go dim, him too deactivating with them. Bonnie is still alive. He is broken beyond repair, but he is still there, hidden behind the bowling alley, watching everything through those little robots, but unable to speak, unable to do anything or interact, just watch. Watching Freddy grieving him, watching Monty performing in his place, watching Gregory and then Cassie and Vanny and everything else and being unable to do anything, being unable to even call out to someone to find him, unable to be found, sealed away. As the only reason Cassie finds him is because the ruined state of the Pizzaplex leaves the wall worn open for her. This entire time Bonnie has been back here, and it is through Cassie that he is finally released, which is even more tragic because if Gregory could have found him, or Freddy, or maybe someone else, maybe they could have fixed his body, or even just fixed his head. Maybe Bonnie could have still pulled through and still would have been able to find happiness, even if not at the Pizzaplex. But due to these circumstances, he never got that chance. He sat and he waited, and waited and waited, and finally someone found him in time to help him let go. It didn't have to be like this, but it was. A fate that Bonnie did not deserve, but sadly received. Of all the somber moments in FNAF, I still feel like that moment with Freddy, that one line, "I miss him," is one of the most impactful in the entire series. It lasts for only a split second, but it means so much. You can feel it. You don't need it explained to understand the weight of it. And now, this follow-up has only amplified those feelings. This scene, the after effects, and the full picture of what Bonnie is still going through. Ruin had a few somber moments, but this silent one, where you find Bonnie and you realize what has happened to him, it is impressive. I might get on at FNAF about its storytelling, but this was done excellently. And save Freddy's line, it was all done through context clues. Of all the ways Glamrock Bonnie's story could have ended, this is the most heart-wrenching. But it's fantastic. And tragic. Rest in peace, Bonnie. We know that Freddy still thinks about you.